I had barely dropped my bag in the hotel before Cairo called to me, not with words, but with sound. The hum of engines, the laughter of street vendors, and the haunting cry of the muezzin that rolled through the city like a warm wave. The late morning sun poured over rooftops, baking everything in a golden haze. Welcome to Passports to the Past, where every journey uncovers the stories behind the ruins, the faces behind the legends, and the wisdom that still guides travelers today. Travel smarter, understand deeper. We know where the bathrooms are. Today we begin in Cairo, Egypt's beating heart, before following the Nile south through temples, tombs, and timeless sands. From the chaos of the city to the calm of the desert, I want to find out what still binds this ancient land together, and why Egypt continues to captivate every traveler who sets foot here. I stepped out, my camera slung over my shoulder, unsure whether to feel like an explorer or a time traveler. Cairo is a living contradiction, ancient bones wrapped in the pulse of modern life. The Nile slices through its heart, calm and eternal, while bridges groan under the weight of a restless population that has seen empires come and go. Over 20 million souls call this city home, and it feels like all of them are on the move at once. Taxis darting between buses, children carrying bread taller than their heads, and tourists like me trying to absorb it all before the next horn blast jolts us back to reality. Egypt stretches across a massive expanse of desert and fertile river valley, roughly the size of Texas and New Mexico combined. Its capital, Cairo, remains its beating heart. A blend of Islamic architecture, colonial facades, and modern glass towers rising where pharaohs once ruled. The official language is Arabic, and though English is widely understood in the tourist districts, every shukran, thank you, earns you a smile that's worth more than currency. Politically, Egypt is a republic, stable on the surface but shaped by a complex past. Revolutions, reforms, and the quiet resilience of its people. Travelers will find that Egypt welcomes them, though caution and respect go far. The US State Department advises staying alert in crowded areas, particularly around demonstrations or government buildings. Still, the warmth of the Egyptian people eclipses any lingering tension. It's a land where curiosity, not fear, opens doors. As I wandered deeper into Cairo, the scent of roasted chickpeas and strong coffee filled the air. Cafes overflowed with chatter, and in the alleys, men pressed mint leaves into teacups with the precision of sculptors. Every street corner felt like a chapter in a story older than language itself. By midday, I found myself along the Nile's embankment. The water shimmered like liquid bronze, reflecting both the high-rises of today and the ghosts of yesterday. Feluccas, small sailboats, drifted lazily past, their white sails cutting through the smog like pieces of forgotten poetry. I thought of how this same river had once carried granite blocks for pyramids, crops for kings, and messages from one civilization to another. The Nile isn't just Egypt's artery, it's its memory. As the call to prayer echoed again, I felt something ancient stir inside me, that human instinct to pause, to listen, and to belong, even if only for a moment, to a world that existed long before I arrived, and will endure long after I leave. I crossed the Nile the next morning with a sense of quiet awe. Cairo wakes slowly, like a giant stretching beneath the sun. The river breeze carried the scent of dust and cardamom, and the skyline shimmered through the haze. Domes, minarets, and satellite dishes, all sharing the same horizon. Walking through the narrow lanes of Islamic Cairo felt like stepping into another century. The walls of the old city leaned inward, whispering secrets of traders, scholars, and conquerors. Mosques rose from the labyrinth like anchors of time. The call to prayer rolled over rooftops, echoed by the honk of distant taxis. Faith and chaos perfectly balanced. It's strange to think that before these streets, before even the pharaohs, Egypt was just a thin green ribbon of life, surrounded by desert. The Nile's annual flood shaped everything, where people lived, what they ate, how they worshipped. Civilization here didn't just survive, it bloomed. Thousands of years before Christ, farmers and builders along this river became the world's first engineers and scribes. They carved stories into stone, mapped the stars, and aligned temples with the precision of modern satellites. Every grain of sand between Cairo and Luxor hides a chapter of human progress. I passed a bookshop tucked between two crumbling archways. Inside, the owner handed me an English translation of The Tale of Sinuhe, one of the oldest surviving stories in existence, written in Egypt nearly 4,000 years ago. The idea that people here told stories, loved, feared, and dreamed, just as we do, made me feel both small and deeply connected. By midday, I was lost again, this time intentionally. That's how you discover Cairo, not through GPS, but through curiosity. Every turn offers a scene from another life. A boy chasing pigeons, a woman balancing bread on her head, a craftsman hammering brass so rhythmically it sounds like music. As I made my way toward Giza, the modern city gave way to stretches of tan dust and palm groves. Somewhere beyond the smog, the pyramids waited, the oldest standing structures on Earth, silent but unyielding. The road to Giza felt like a slow unraveling of time. The city faded behind me, replaced by the open desert and the shimmer of heat on the horizon. Then, suddenly, they appeared. The pyramids. No photo or documentary prepares you for the scale of them. They rise from the sand like something the earth itself pushed upward, massive and deliberate, as if to remind every generation who really built the foundations of civilization. Standing at the base of the Great Pyramid, I tilted my head back until the world seemed to spin. Each block was taller than I was, and there were over 2 million of them. They say it took 20 years to build, but when you see it in person, 20 centuries feels more believable. The symmetry, the precision, all achieved without modern machines, still leaves engineers puzzled. Nearby, the Sphinx kept its quiet watch, its eroded face staring east toward the rising sun. Locals told me it was carved from a single limestone ridge, the body of a lion to symbolize strength, and the face of a pharaoh to mark wisdom. Wind and time have softened its features, but that gaze still holds authority, an ancient calm that seems to see through you. Vendors offered camel rides and postcards, their shouts echoing between the monuments. I declined, preferring to walk the sand myself, to feel the crunch under my shoes and the dry wind against my skin. History feels heavier when you earn it step by step. It's here that Egypt's paradox becomes clear, a nation both ancient and young. Beyond the plateau, the modern skyline of Giza city hums with traffic, cell towers, and cafes. A few miles separate the digital world from the eternal one, yet both coexist without apology. As the afternoon sun turned the pyramids to molten gold, I found a quiet dune and sat down. The desert stretched endlessly before me, and for a brief moment, the noise of the modern world vanished. I could almost hear the workers of long ago, their chants rising with the wind, a rhythm older than language, still echoing through time. After leaving the Giza plateau, I wandered back into Cairo as twilight approached. The city glowed in amber tones, street lamps flickering to life, the hum of scooters rising like an urban heartbeat. I slipped into a narrow cafe tucked between two fading apartment blocks. Inside, the air smelled of tobacco, mint, and roasted coffee beans. The owner, a man named Karim, greeted me with a smile that could melt stone. His English was limited, my Arabic even more so, but between gestures, laughter, and shared tea, we understood everything that mattered. He asked where I was from, then waved his hand proudly toward the radio as a soft Egyptian ballad played. "Music," he said, tapping his chest. "We all feel same." It struck me that Egypt's spirit isn't trapped in monuments. It lives in people like Karim. Warm, expressive, endlessly curious. Egyptians have a way of folding strangers into their circle, as if hospitality were part of their DNA. Outside, the streets transformed into a living festival. Families strolled along the Nile, children chased kites, and vendors shouted over sizzling kebabs and sweet corn. The air pulsed with rhythm, a fusion of old and new, where prayer calls echoed alongside car horns and pop songs. Modern Egypt is a land of contrast. Tech startups share space with spice markets, and university students debate politics under palm trees that have watched pharaohs, Romans, and Ottomans come and go. Tourism, agriculture, and the Suez Canal fuel the economy, but it's the creativity of the people that defines the nation now. Women in hijabs walked beside others in jeans. Old men played dominoes while young couples took selfies. It's a country constantly balancing reverence for the past with hunger for the future. Later that night, from my hotel balcony, I watched the city flicker beneath a blanket of stars and neon. The distant hum of traffic blended with the call to prayer. Egypt was alive, not as a relic, but as a reminder that history doesn't sleep, it adapts. The next morning began with the soft knock of room service and the strong aroma of Egyptian coffee. Thick, dark, and sweet enough to wake the pharaohs themselves. My day's plan was simple. Wander, eat, and learn what Egypt costs when you live it, not just visit it. Egypt is, by most standards, a traveler's dream when it comes to value. On a budget, $20 to $30 a day can take you surprisingly far. Street food, metro rides, and a clean local guest house. Mid-range comfort sits around $70 to $100 per day, enough for boutique hotels, guided tours, and Nile-side dinners. If you're chasing luxury, Cairo's 5-star rooftops and Red Sea resorts can easily climb to $200 or more. But wherever you spend, generosity seems to be included in the price. Street food is Egypt's love language. Falafel made with fava beans, not chickpeas, crisp and herbed. Kushari, the chaotic national dish, layers lentils, rice, pasta, and tomato sauce in a bowl that looks like an accident but tastes like perfection. Vendors sell mango juice that feels like drinking sunlight. Every meal becomes an introduction to a 1,000-year-old conversation about flavor. Of course, Egypt teaches more than indulgence. It reminds travelers to stay alert, not anxious. Most scams are simple: a taxi without a meter, a guide authorized by no one, a camel ride that ends with a surprise charge. A firm "la shukran," meaning "no thank you," usually solves it. Egyptians respect confidence and kindness in equal measure. As for safety, I found it much like any big city. Lively, unpredictable, and perfectly fine if you keep your wits. Avoid demonstrations, trust your instincts, and always ask locals before photographing sacred spaces or people. Modesty, both in dress and behavior, earns you respect here. By evening, I'd realized something every traveler learns too late. Egypt isn't about how much you spend, but how deeply you listen. The more you slow down, the more the country reveals itself. My final day in Egypt began before dawn. I wanted to see the city wake one last time. From my hotel window, I watched Cairo turn from shadow to gold. Minarets caught the first light, and the Nile reflected it like a slow-moving mirror. I'd grown used to this rhythm, the city humming to life, a heartbeat that never stops. Travel in Egypt is a test of patience and poetry. The metro is crowded but efficient. Tuk-tuks fill the gaps where maps don't go. Long-distance buses and trains connect every major city, and domestic flights are surprisingly affordable for covering the long stretches of desert between Cairo, Luxor, and Aswan. Most restrooms are clean in hotels and restaurants, though it's wise to carry small bills and tissues, two forms of currency that open nearly every door. For digital nomads and remote workers, Egypt is slowly finding its stride. Internet speeds vary, fast in urban centers, sluggish in the countryside, but the views make up for the buffering. Cafes along Zamalek Island or Alexandria's coast are dotted with laptops beside hookahs and tea glasses. It's a rhythm of work and wonder, where the Wi-Fi might drop, but inspiration never does. By afternoon, I found myself back at the river. I bought a cup of mint tea from a boy who couldn't have been older than 10. He smiled shyly and handed me the glass, careful not to spill a drop. Behind him, the Nile rolled on, the same river that had carried dreams, grain, and gods for millennia. As the sun sank, Cairo softened into its evening glow again. I realized that Egypt is not a destination, it's a dialogue. Between past and present, between traveler and host, between sand and civilization. The city lights shimmered like a constellation turned upside down, and I felt that old ache of departure, the bittersweet kind that tells you you've truly been somewhere. This is passports to the past. Travel smarter. We know where the bathrooms are.